I see so many coaches burn out so early, or they enter this arena in essence and think like, oh, this is going to be so easy. And it's a very hard profession, and it's very hard to get to the place where you're scaling. And I don't say that to scare people. I just say that if you know that going in versus how it's often portrayed as like, oh, you're going to make money and drink margaritas on the beach, you're going to just go in with a different mindset of this is going to take a while and the long game. But once you hit a certain point, I mean, there was just a tipping point that I had pretty recently. So I would say 8 or 9 years in the game where I was just like, man, I can coach anybody on anything. I know who I am very deeply. And I know, if anyone's presenting something to me, I know what's a yes and what's a no. And so you just kind of become, for lack of a better term, unstoppable.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets, the podcast where we talk with successful career coaches on how they built their success and the hard lessons they learned along the way. My name is Davis Nguyen, and I'm the founder of Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to 7 and 8 figures without burning out. Before Purple Circle, I started and scaled several 7 and 8 figure career coaching businesses myself and consulted with 2 career coaching businesses that are now doing over $100 million each. Whether you're an established coach or just building your practice for the first time, you'll discover the secrets to elevating your coaching business.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Career Coaching Secrets Podcast. I'm your host, Regin, and today's guest is Lindsay Preston. She is the CEO of Trust and Leadership Coaching with over a decade of experience and more than 2,500 hours of coaching under her belt. Lindsay helps high-achieving leaders go from burnout to breakthrough using neuroscience-backed methods and whole person transformation. She's a PCC-certified executive coach, which is a distinction only by 0.05% of coaches known globally, and she's a recognized human growth and integration expert. Lindsay has coached hundreds of leaders, built multiple six-figure coaching businesses, and created over 650 training videos and a top-ranked podcast. And it's a pleasure for me to have her on the podcast today. Welcome to the show, Lindsay.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
So yeah, it's a pleasure for us. And could you tell me a little bit more about what inspired you to start your own coaching business and be a coach in the first place?
Yeah, so when I was an undergraduate, I majored in psychology, and I just kind of majored in that on a whim. And I thought I would go into counseling. So I took some time off, went into HR for a bit, and life happened, and I ended up in therapy. And I found that therapy was helpful, but it wasn't that thing that I really needed. And so during this time when I'm having my own life changes, experiencing therapy wasn't great, somebody put coaching in my ear and I thought it lacked credibility. But I found a program that was based in neuroscience. And so I jumped on it and became a client of it. And within a few weeks, I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I've always wanted to do. I just didn't know it existed. So as a client, I was just getting really quick, fast results because it was so action oriented. And that was like the piece that I was missing in that. So from there, got multi-certified, and the rest is history.
Cool. And I want to ask you also about the credibility part of coaching in general a little bit later on. But throughout your journey as a coach, which part of your journey did you find the most rewarding since you started your coaching business?
The first few years, I would say, were really rewarding to see the impact that I was making on somebody else's life, because having been in human resources for a while, I felt like I wasn't really making an impact too much. And so I was just like, I've got to do something. I don't want my life to be where I'm just going to work and clocking in and basically become the skeleton in time. And so to see such a big impact that I was making in other people's lives, it just was so fulfilling and felt so powerful.
Are you driven by impact? Is that what pushes you to do this kind of job?
Yes. For sure.
Interesting. Yeah, it's been the case with most of the coaches that I've interviewed. The amount of impact you can make is incredible. And even in our company, our mission is to impact 1 billion lives. It seems like a big number, but when you think about it, we're working with coaches. Coaches are working with their clients. Their clients have families. If they're leaders, they have their own teams. Their teams are affected. So it's a very big ripple effect there. So I am always excited I really like this industry. Is there a specific type of target audience that you generally are working with? And how does the transformation look like for them after they've worked with you?
Yeah, so it's changed throughout the years because it's been 11 years since I've been coaching now. So at first, I was one of those 20 something year old life coaches starting out. So I was really helping 20 somethings kind of go through the quote unquote quarter life crisis. And then it evolved to working with women in transition, which then evolved to working with leaders. And then this past year, it's been an evolution of really expanding the business, taking on a team of coaches, and really stepping into the CEO role. And so where we are now is really working with leaders of all levels, from rising stars all the way up through exec, and creating curriculum to really address what issues they have at play, and not just issues of like communication or decision making, but beneath that, what's going on in the nervous system at that level in the game, because we're just slapping a ton of trainings on a lot of problems, and it's not until we're able to kind of go beneath the surface and see what's going on in the brain and body that we're able to actually solve the problems and someone's actually able to get better.
Are you still doing coaching on your own, or is it mostly through the team right now and you've taken a backseat?
Yeah, so I actually have a small group of clients that I've had for a really long time. And in the next few months, they will all have been transitioned out. So I won't be coaching at all anymore.
Cool, great. I really like that. So one thing that we look at when working with coaches here at Purple Circle is that their advancement over time. So initially they're the coach, they're the marketing person, there's the salesperson.
Mm-hmm.
And then they will hire out these roles that they've been doing. And an analogy that we use is like you initially are a pilot of your airplane and eventually become a passenger to your airplane, which is always nice. And you can have that view of like not working in your business, but working on your business and trying to help the team grow as well. In terms of like marketing, what has been a very good channel or maybe channels that have helped you grow over time?
Yeah, so the commonality I would say among all of them, and I'll get into the specifics, is anything that's very values driven and anything where the client is able to experience, at that time, me or now my team in a way that really gives them deep insight. So, for example, I had a podcast for many years, and on that podcast, I talked very openly about my life and how I was using the tools that I was teaching. And so that was a great tool for clients because they would listen to the podcast and be like, oh my gosh, like not only am I learning these tools, but I'm learning who this person is and how she's using the tools in her day-to-day life. So they would often come to a chemistry call or a consult call and already be sold because they already knew what I was teaching in some ways and like who I was. And so they felt very safe in that. But in time, it kind of got exhausting, and I just felt like this vulnerability hangover a lot of always sharing my life. And so it's evolved now to being in a system where we have an ad, and that ad is leading them to getting on a call where they're able to really unpack, what it is that's blocking them. So they're getting that value add right away. Again, getting that connection from us right away, because connection is one of our big values. And then seeing from there if they want to continue to work with us or not.
And so this ad, is it on Facebook or YouTube, or is it multiple channels at the same time?
Yeah, so Meta, and then we're looking to expand into LinkedIn.
Interesting. So LinkedIn ads as well. We did have a guest actually that explained how he was utilizing LinkedIn ads. His name was Zach White, and he shows all about his setup of ads in LinkedIn. So feel free to check that episode out. So the strategy right now is there's an ad, there's an offer, which is they get into the call, and then this is kind of like how the funnel looks like. The call is a qualifying call potentially, and then they get to work with a coach if they're interested in what have to offer.
Yeah, so many times what we are targeting for is what we call like the established leader or the exec. So the established leader is somebody who's been in leadership for a while, and they tend to be managing other high performers at that point. So they're not managing kind of the individual contributors, or managing other managers, right? So we tend to target established leaders, execs. And so once we're getting them on the call, 9 times out of 10, then we're qualifying them for our leadership mastery program. And so that program is a combination of a curated cohort and then a customized coach, meaning they're matched very intently with the coach that they're getting along with their peers. And then they're going through this neuroscience backed process where they're getting monthly these little nuggets of neuroscience along the way and different tools. And then we're tracking their progress using some of the assessments that we use that are neuroscience backed. Because I don't know about you, but how I've felt in coaching or therapy or any kind of personal development is like, am I actually improving? Like, am I actually getting better? And you can tell by the wins and like, all that stuff. But what I love about our assessments is like, wow, look at how much your focus has grown and your memory and your resilience. We're kind of able to test what was once untestable. And so it allows us to really have a system to know, A, what the client needs, and then two, is what we're doing working.
And do you often get potential clients on the call and I want to get back to that conversation that I mentioned in the beginning, when it comes to the credibility of coaching, do you get clients saying, oh, I think I can figure this out on my own? Or how do you help these clients really understand the value of coaching?
Yeah, so it's a very natural conversation, right? Because if somebody's at a place where they want to figure out on their own, like, great, we're not going to pressure them into anything. However, I'm very well versed in the process of where somebody is at 9 times out of 10, because I've been doing this for a hot second. And so I can kind of walk them through the journey of, okay, here's just what this is probably going to look like. And in a way that's helpful of like, okay, you're probably going to experience X and then this is going to happen and Y. And so just prepare yourself for that as you go forward on your journey, and just know at some point, if it's like, okay, here I am at X, just like what Lindsay said, now next is Y, and then you're at Y and you're like, okay, I'm ready to kind of outsource this, then we're here to help.
And do you have like a team of sales reps as well?
We're getting to that place. Yes.
Okay. So right now it's you taking the calls?
Me and another member of the leadership team.
Cool. Great. Awesome. So do you believe that, just like, for example, your clients, and actually you have received coaching, is what got you to start your coaching business. Do you believe that coaches should have coaches as well?
Yeah, so I've gone back and forth. I think there's definitely seasons for it. And then there are times when it's like almost unnecessary, like that pressure of, oh, I need to have this coach because I'm a coach. Like, there was a mastermind I invested in, and it was probably one of the worst investments I ever made. And I kind of thought, oh, now I'm at this level, like I get to invest at this level, and it just really didn't amount to much. And so I really had to step back from that experience and say, okay, what is it that I'm really needing? And really like sit through that. And two, the burnout piece is like, I've gotten to points in my career where it's like, I'm tired of working on myself. Like, I just want to go enjoy my life. Right. And so just that ebb and flow of the two.
And since you mentioned this was not a good investment, I'm always looking out for what are good and what are bad investments. What is something that, don't have to mention who this was or like the membership, but what was it that you thought, well, that's why it didn't work out?
I don't think I was the right client for that container. And had there been a better onboarding process and a better, I'll just call filtration process, then it would have come up very quick that I wasn't the right fit. But in that process of me experiencing it and spending a lot of money in that, it allowed me to really fine tune my process and make sure I never give a client experience that way. So it's actually, a blessing and a curse in a lot of ways, because then I became a better coach and salesperson and all the things.
So it's been a learning experience, and you make a good point that the onboarding process could serve as an extra layer of qualification. Even after someone has enrolled, they will know at that point if the onboarding process is good enough. They will know at that point if they're a good fit or not. And if they're not, then they could like either get a refund or move on, because obviously it would not be a good use of your time and the client's time at the same time.
Yeah. So in our process, we have up to a 3-month onboarding process. So they work with an onboarding coach who's solely trained in onboarding someone to look for different things. And, as we move to having a salesperson, is obviously training them on a yes and no client, but it's hard sometimes because we have bias too. I realized in my process that there are certain types of clients that, if they're outgoing and they're friendly, then I'll be like, oh, they're ready. And then you get them in the door and you're like, oh, no, you're really not ready. So having that kind of filtration system is really helpful to kind of cut the bias.
And to move away from marketing and that, what is something that you're working on right now for the future? Is there any goals? Like, obviously you mentioned that the next step would be to hire a sales team. Is that like the next big thing you're working on, or what would be the next big thing for the next 1 to 3 years, maybe short to
Yeah.
medium term?
So the salesperson we see in the next quarter or so. So that will be a pretty easy ad. And then from there, I really love to have kind of a fractional CFO in essence. So somebody that can really do the forecasting and really kind of guide us on ways to better invest and to save and to make sure everyone's getting paid well and all of that stuff. But one thing that's really kind of been on my heart a lot lately has been helping people in transition from jobs. And there's a lot of grant money out there for people who, can tap into that. And so having somebody that can go out there and apply for grants for us and to get that funding so we can go to people that are in transition and say, hey, we've got this grant funding. Do you want this support during this time of transition in your job, especially for execs, because sometimes they get the rug pulled out from underneath them and they don't really know what to do. That's kind of something we're keeping our eye on.
I didn't know about this. So how do these grants work? I didn't know there's grants for this thing.
Yeah, so they tend to be government grants, but they can also be grants from different corporations. I'm just throwing a name out there, like say Chase Bank might have a grant of, okay, we're going to offer 500,000 for people in transition of jobs, right? And so just going out there and finding them, then applying for them, and then being able to use those resources in a way to funnel them through our work.
Cool, interesting. Thanks for
Yeah.
bringing that up. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So, okay, we talked about bad investments and there was a learning there as well, which kind of like was in a way good learning. What would be a good investment that you've had that has made a good difference in you growing your coaching business?
Yeah, I would say anytime I've invested in one-on-one support with someone, I've always left that. I'm trying to think if I say always. I can't find any inconsistencies with that, but I've always left those engagements like, wow, that was one of the best investments I ever made. Be it a coach or a marketing person or, an ops person, an admin, like that's where you can really get the juice of your money.
Cool. And so one-on-one experience, you'd say, so basically you don't really like group coaching. And by the way, do you do group coaching on your own business?
Yeah, actually, group coaching is one of our specialties that we're really great at. And I think it's because I had such a mediocre experience with group coaching that I've become very anal, I guess, about our experience because we have a huge retention rate. Like 85% of our people come back year after year because we're so good at being able to scale a very customizable experience.
Interesting. So wherever you had a bad experience, you kind of like made that better for your coaching.
Yes, for sure.
So what is a challenge right now that you're working on next with your coaching business, apart from like the future hiring that you're looking for and the project with the grants? Is there any challenge that you see right now with your coaching business?
I mean, I wouldn't call it a challenge per se. It's just, part of growth and transition is just really getting more and more into the CEO role and what that looks like because I've been a coach for so long. And so really kind of taking this really big role and starting to knock it down of, okay, what is it that I really want to focus on? Because now kind of I get to design this myself and hire out whoever else I want to. And, with that is exciting and there's a lot of freedom, but also like, oh crap, with all this kind of freedom, like where do I want to go with it?
I get it. I totally get that. And well, I'm not sure if it's going to be that much freedom, but yeah, we'll see how that looks like for you or later on.
Yeah.
Is there any final advice you'd like to give to other coaches who are looking to scale their business, either to the level that you have scaled or maybe even more than that? So it would be like an advice you give to yourself.
Yeah, I mean, what comes to mind is, just stick with it because I see so many coaches burn out so early or they enter this arena in essence and think like, oh, this is going to be so easy. And it's a very hard profession and it's very hard to get to the place where you're scaling. And I don't say that to scare people. I just say that if you know that going in versus how it's often portrayed as like, oh, you're going to make money and drink margaritas on the beach. You're going to just go in with a different mindset of this is going to take a while and the long game. But once you hit a certain point, I mean, there was just a tipping point that I had pretty recently. So I would say 8 or 9 years in the game where I was just like, man, I can coach anybody on anything. I know who I am very deeply. And I know, if anyone's presenting something to me, I know what's a yes and what's a no. And so you just kind of become, for lack of a better term, unstoppable.
Thank you. Thank you so much. For anyone who wants to find you or connect with you, they can go into your LinkedIn, Lindsay Preston, or they can go into your website, trustandleadership.com. Is there any other way that they could connect with you or reach out to
No,
you?
those are perfect.
Cool. Thank you so much, Lindsay. It's been lovely having you on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
That's it for this episode of Career Coaching Secrets. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can subscribe to YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this episode to catch future episodes. This conversation was brought to you by Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to 7 and 8 figures without burning out. To learn more about Purple Circle, our community, and how we can help you grow your business, visit joinpurplecircle.com.